Hello and welcome to a new interview from MinnMax. I'm Ben Hansen. MinnMax is a Patreon about games, friends, and getting better. And today, our interview guest is the one and only Sid Meier himself. It's an honor to be joined by Sid Meier to talk about his new memoir, Sid Meier's Memoir, A Life in Computer Games. In this interview, we talk about why he chose to write a memoir, the importance of preserving that history, what he's learned from looking back on his own life, the nostalgic bits in there, what he's learned about running a studio like Firaxis, Firaxis' specialties, a lot of Sid Meier life advice packed into this interview. So thank you so much for clicking on this if you're watching on YouTube. If you want to unlock the podcast version of this interview, all of our past interviews, all of our future interviews, and the podcast versions of The Deepest Dive, which is the best, most thorough discussion about games on the internet, huge community game clubs. We're doing Super Mario 64 next, and we could use your input and insight to read on the show. Also, you get early access to the MinnMax show and exclusive shows like MinnFacts. There's a lot of bonus stuff if you support us at patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's at the $5 tier, but support us at any tier and you can jump into our community Discord, which is a wonderful place to hang out with some wonderful people and meet new folks to play games with. But without further ado, the one and only Sid Meier. Sid Meier, welcome to MinnMax, sir.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
It's an honor to have you. Is this a glimpse of your house behind you?
This is actually our living room. Yeah, it's a time when we spend a lot of time at home. And what more comfortable place to chat than in our living room?
Yeah, it looks so cozy. How's your life been recently? What's been going on over there?
Life has been, we're making the best of things. I think that as a designer and a programmer, I've worked most of the time by myself, so I'm able to do my work from home with actually fewer distractions and interruptions than normal, I guess. So, and I can interact with people, over Zoom, or I can connect to our network and update things. So, it's actually been not as bad as it might have been. We're adjusting, we're coping, we're making the best of things. I've been doing a lot of reading and. Our company is sponsoring free Netflix for all of our employees. So
wow.
Binging on some TV shows. So just a different set of things to do, but making the best of it.
Yeah. Back when you were in the office, I don't mean to make you too nostalgic about 6 months ago, but back when you were in the office, what is the right level of interaction for you per day? Like, do you like those days where you can just walk in with your trench coat, go right to your office, close the door, and just program all day and then leave? Or is it like, I should chit chat for maybe 10, 15 minutes and then really get to it?
My days kind of fall into two halves. Like I'll come in the morning with a bunch of ideas. So at that point, I want to just jump right on it and program those, try them out, see what is gonna happen. That'll go depending whether I had a lot of ideas or not so many. A couple of hours, probably till lunchtime, and then after lunch, I'm a little more relaxed. I've kind of maybe run out of ideas or. I'm ready to talk to people, ready to kind of get some feedback and things like that. So it's a little bit of each, but I definitely try to keep my morning times focused, and then I can schedule my meetings or other things more in the afternoon.
And you're tinkering with your own prototype engine with these ideas, or what does your tinkering process in the morning actually look like?
Well, I'm generally working on a prototype of a new game idea or an add-on to something that we already have, and I will, strangely enough, in the shower, I get a lot of my ideas, so I'll write them down. Come into work with a piece of notepaper with 7 or 8 things that I want to do, and sit down and I program them, try them out. If they work. Leave them in. If they don't work, I'll try and fix them. If they don't work at all, we'll take them out, try something else. Sometimes, a new idea will pop into my head at that time. But somehow, overnight, things kind of percolate. And in the morning, I tend to have solutions to some of the problems that I might have been facing the day before and some new ideas for making the prototype better or adding a new feature to it.
Yeah. And without, spoiling any top secret stuff you might be working on, can you give like a level of, or just the scale of some of these ideas? Is it just a programming trick, or is it a level of like, oh, you know what, if we change this number here, it'll impact gameplay this way? Or like, what scale are these ideas that you come in the morning with?
They are basically features, like, this ability is too powerful, but it should work this way, or I've been meaning to figure out how to make this part unique, and here's a thought about that, or this is overpowered. How do we keep it fun, but not, but nerf it down a little bit, or this is boring. I never use this thing, how do I make it interesting enough so that I'm going to use it more? Or I always use this thing. So how do I make the other things more attractive? So, I'm always about those interesting decisions. So it's kind of looking at the different parts of the game and saying, are these things that, I'm intrigued to go in all the different directions, or some of these just boring and I would never choose them. So I might as well get rid of them.
Yeah. I like the idea of you draining all the hot water in your house, just taking a super long shower, staring at the wall, coming up with these ideas.
Yeah, I haven't gone to the extent of, like a waterproof whiteboard in my shower yet. I have to retain them all in my head.
Hey,
but
keeps you young. That seems great.
At a certain point, I once thought about like having a little tape recorder in the shower, but so far I haven't had that many ideas that I couldn't keep track of them.
Yeah, it's like 7. You can juggle that in your mind. That checks out. Well, hey, thank you for writing a memoir. So few people in the game industry have taken this leap. Do you want to just talk about that process of what compelled you to write this?
Well, I think I realized that I have been around for quite a while making games. I really, was so fortunate to be there some of the very early days and to keep doing it. And I've seen, I guess, the evolution of this industry, and from beginning to where it is today. And realizing that today we have every piece of information we'd ever want at our fingertips with the internet and wiki, etc. But for about the first half of that journey, we weren't recording every waking moment in some cloud somewhere. So some of these stories, some of these the background. This is kind of, in a way, our origin story. Starting with 8-bit computers with 8K of memory and up till today. So I thought it might be worth kind of writing some of things down. These are a lot of the questions I'll get asked sometimes about different games, and specifically the stories behind the games, because a lot of times you'll play a game and you kind of assume that was the way it was always supposed to be, and that was the idea from the beginning, and that was the design, and it was just a straight path from point A to point B to make the game. Seldom is that true. There are often many blind alleys and moments of inspiration that kind of lead to the final game. So putting those down, kind of talking about the process of making those games. Often I'm asked, how do I get into the gaming industry? How do you design games? I want to be a game designer. I think these are a lot of fairly instructive incidents, things. We talk about some of our game design rules, and hopefully they can spare somebody from making some of the same mistakes that we made along the way.
Yeah. Why do you think so few other game developers have written books, have written memoirs, have chronicled this stuff? Do you think you just have a innate love of history more than them, and you appreciate that aspect?
That might be part of it. I think, I've been really fortunate in being able to focus on game design for my entire career. And this industry is pretty volatile. Companies come and go, opportunities come and go. And I think it's perhaps not that hard to kind of become discouraged or, kind of no longer have the enthusiasm for the industry. I mean, we have lots of young designers doing great things, but I might be one of the few old designers trying to still do great things. I think that might be part of the reason. There's kind of enough to fill a book at this point. So I can't really answer for some of the other folks. I'd love to read their books as well, but that's why we made this book.
Yeah. Well, I hope yours kind of serves as a catalyst to get some other people in a more reflective mood, even just to preserve some of their history and their gaming history, or just to write books. It's so frustrating. There's so many great minds out there, and it's like, Mark Cerny, get some things down on paper, please, before something horrific happens. We need this history preserved.
Yeah, I don't know that we think, as game designers, I'm not sure we think of books as like a thing so much that everything we do is on a computer, and isn't every piece of information that's ever been known already out there somewhere. What can I add to that? Because a book, what's that? It's something I can download onto my iPad, I guess. But books are not front of mind all the time for us.
Yeah, that could be. Which begs the question: did you ever think about an interactive biography? No. I shudder to think what people would do to my life if they could mess with it. So I'll just stick with my story. Okay, not even a choose your own adventure. Let's keep it nice and simple. I love that you call it Sid Meier's Memoir. It's the perfect name. Are there any weird? I mean, you own your own name, right? Is there any level of ownership of your name by 2K at this point?
It's kind of a joke, and not a joke, but it's amusing to me that I have this kind of dual life. It's almost like Batman and Bruce Wayne and Batman. That I'm a brand. I'm a name on a video game box or website. Referring to things that I've done in the past. And there's another me, which is in the present, doing things focused on the future. So it's I have to smile when I think about that other Sid Meier, because he almost has his own life, a separate life. And it's kind of a weird situation sometimes, but I appreciate and I value the path that has brought us both here, and it's kind of a fact of life right now for me. So
yeah,
there's Sid and there's Sid.
It had to be really funny when your name kind of became a brand, and imagine your family had a real kick out of that. Like, oh, reading Sid Meier's Thanksgiving meal. Look at this. It has to be a common joke.
Yes, it became a little bit of a joke after a while.
Yeah, I'd imagine your parents were proud, though.
Yes, they have been. Yes, they've been proud. They are very supportive, and they've always encouraged me to be creative and try things, and really have been supportive in that way that has kind of allowed me to explore, experiment, and become a game designer, I guess.
Yeah. So with your name, there's a legend that Robin Williams was connected with getting your name on the actual, boxes back in the day. Can you tell that story, dispel it, walk us through how this whole thing happened for your name becoming a brand?
I can tell you a couple of different stories about that.
Sure.
The Robin Williams story comes from Bill Staley, who was my partner at Microprose. He was the business guy, basically, and I was the game design guy. And I hope Bill writes his book so he can tell his side of the stories. But that is what I've heard from Bill, that he was at a dinner with Robin Williams, and the idea, directors are known by their name, actors, comedians are known by their name. Why don't we know who these game designers are? Apparently, Robin Williams was into games quite a bit. In fact, in one of the prototypes that I worked on, I was informed that he would be playing it, and this was Sim Golf, and we put his kids' names on all the different lakes on the golf course just for fun.
Oh, that's amazing.
The story that I remember, I never met Robin Williams, so I don't know any of the details of Bill's story. But the story as I remember it was I had done a number of kind of military vehicle games, F-15, Silent Service, F-19, and I wanted to do a pirates game. I thought it'd be fun to do a game about pirates and kind of do something a little different and do kind of give our take on the adventure genre. And I said, oh, I want to do this Pirates game. And he said, no, Pirates, no, we need more airplane games. People want more airplane games. I said, no, I really want to do a pirate game. And he said, well, we'll put your name on the pirate game. So people that like the airplane games and the submarine game will maybe say, okay, it's the same person, so this could be a good pirate game. And Pirates turned out pretty well. So, once something works, you keep doing it over and over again. So that was the first game that had my name on it was Pirates, and that's the reason I believe that happened.
Do you want this to continue? Do you want your name to be a brand moving into the future in a Tom Clancy-esque way?
I probably don't have a lot of control over that, but I do not object. I'm honored to have my name associated with those games. So no, I'm happy with that. I mean, it's I wouldn't be totally sad if it didn't happen, but again, it's kind of a parallel person that we hang out every once in a while.
Just bizarre. Do other developers within Firaxis ever bring up the idea of putting their own name on one of these games? Like, was Enemy Unknown ever pitched as Jake Solomon's XCOM at some point?
Not to me.
Okay.
I wouldn't object to that. But for it's a good question. I don't know why that hasn't come up more frequently. Or even at other companies. I mean, it is fairly unusual, quite unusual. I think. I mean, one thing that strikes me though is one of our philosophies is that the player is the star. That it's kind of one of our fundamental rules is the player is the star of the game. And often when a game's not working, we'll ask, well, who's having the fun here? Is the designer having the fun? Or is the player having the fun? Or is the computer having the fun? If it's not the player that's having the fun at this moment, then something is wrong. So putting my name on the box actually kind of contradicts that philosophy of ours, where it's really about the player and their story and their path through the game. So perhaps we're sticking more rigorously to our philosophy now than we did back in the day of Pirates.
Yeah, it checks out. I love that idea of the developers being swept away and they're having the fun here instead of the player. Do you think that happens a lot in the industry? Do you have to beat that over younger developers' heads of like, just focus on the player, don't try and be sneaky and have a little developer fun with the design here?
It's very tempting, to if you're kind of impress the player with your deep knowledge about the topic, whatever it happens to be, and have the player say, "Wow, that designer really knows all about this." Unfortunately, I don't, and I'm not having any fun. So I think that the temptation to over design or is something we always want to kind of be cautious about. Not to say that we want great designs, but it's about the player having the fun and the designer providing the world and the mechanics to allow that to happen.
Yeah. So when tackling the memoir, looking back at your life, did any unexpected themes emerge when you're looking at this thing as a whole? Did you stop and think like, oh, there's these connections that I never realized before, or it turns out I keep recurring to this theme? Anything stand out in a big way?
I think two things that are kind of related. One was how much things have changed over those years, and the other is kind of like how little things have changed. And to think about making games over the course of 3 or 4 months, to make games, in the amount of memory and colors and all that stuff that we didn't have back in those days, makes you really appreciate how much things have changed. But on the other hand, these rules of game design, for example, that we talk about, making the player the star, doubling it or cutting it in half, easy to start playing, hard to stop playing, those are still very valid today as when we first kind of stumbled upon them. So The fact that Civilization is still a viable franchise these days, and people are still playing Civilization. It's kind of an indication of how much how much continuity there is. So there's those two threads really that are brought out, is like how far we've come, in some ways, but in other ways how the core of what we do still is valid, still works. The interactivity, the engagement, the storytelling of the player, allowing them to own the story, replayability, all those things that we really worked to put into our early games are still very important today.
Because you think you tap into some larger, just basic game design themes that could go back hundreds, even thousands of years of when they're designing Go. It's like, hey, let's try doubling it or having it and see how it works.
Probably true. Yeah. Probably in the shower too. That was playing to them at the shower.
Yeah, absolutely. What was it like going and writing this memoir to kind of sort through your own history? What was that process like for you?
Well, I worked with Jennifer Noonan, who's an author, and we had some very, very long conversations. And she would kind of put all that into a readable and interesting form. And she actually did a lot of research, about things that were also happening at the same time, or kind of some background things that I may not even been aware of at the time. And so it was a collaborative process, and the two of us together kind of made it happen just over the course of over a year of talking and trying to bring back memories and talking about the good old days.
Yeah. Are you a nostalgic guy?
Not primarily. I'm more interested in what new thing am I going to do today. But it's certainly gratifying to look back on the work that we've done, especially talking to players. That's the time when it's easy to get nostalgic talking about somebody who played Civ 1 and has these memories, or Pirates or whatever. That's kind of when I realized that the games that we had such fun making also were fun for people to play, and created some very positive memories for them that they're now passing along to their kids. So it's doubly gratifying to see that happen.
Yeah. So I visited Firaxis and ran the video equipment for interviewing you back when I was at Game Informer during the XCOM Enemy Unknown cover story. And what struck me visiting that studio is how unbelievably friendly it is. I think it's the friendliest studio I've ever visited. And I wonder if you can share some lessons you've learned along the way about just maintaining a healthy, friendly workplace environment like Firaxis.
Well, I think the bottom line is if we're not having fun, then it's hard to make fun. Our goal is to provide a fun experience to the players. So if we're not enjoying the process, if we're not having fun doing this, it's going to be hard to fake it. So we do try to create an environment where we're enjoying our work, where people are allowed to be creative. I think when people come to Firaxis to program or to test or to do sound or art, they kind of know what our company is about, in terms of the types of games that we make, and so I think they're pre-inclined to enjoy that environment, enjoy those types of games, and enjoy the work that we're doing. So I think that's part of it. We're also located outside of Baltimore. It's not the kind of Silicon Valley, look over your shoulder, see what everybody else is doing kind of environment. Right. Maybe I'm just presuming, but we are focused on what we do, and we're not too concerned about what else is going on at the company next door. So I think those are some of the things that allow us to be friendly and happy and enjoy what we do. Yeah,
just have maybe some more senior staff that are ready to have a nice place to sit with their family and not worried about jumping from job to job in the Silicon Valley area.
Yeah, I think in Civilization and XCOM have become these franchises that we can count on, and we have a community of players. We have our fans, we think we kind of understand why the games work and what we can do to add to them or to keep them going. But we're not in a situation where we feel that there's danger. We have to worry about what tomorrow might bring.
Right.
There's a certain stability in having these games that there's a established player base for.
Yeah. Can you talk about studio culture a little bit more? Were there lessons that you learned early on about how to maintain a healthy workspace? I'm sure at times it's, been somewhere on a spectrum of, okay, this is a good vibe versus, this vibe's a little bit shaky. Mistakes you made early on, anything like that you can impart to other studios out there?
Well, I think we, from the earliest days, felt that happy people make happy games. I guess I'm kind of saying the same thing.
No, yeah.
That it's not an industry where you're working with like a 3% profit margin where, every dollar you spend has to be totally justified. If we want to have a blowout Christmas party, let's have a blowout Christmas party. If we can pay some bonuses, we'll pay some bonuses. So it's the philosophy that profits are not the primary. Profits are good, but they're not the primary day-to-day determination of whether this has been a good day or a bad day. It's have we made a better game? Is our game better today than it was yesterday? And the rest kind of works out. That's always been our feeling, is if we make the best games we can make, a lot of the other stuff will kind of work itself out. And so far that has tended to be true.
Yeah. I'm curious what you've learned about your own limits, finding your own happy spot within the studio. I think you're an amazing lesson in knowing what you're great at and focusing on that and staying consistent throughout all these years. It seems like a lot of other people in a lot of other studios can get carried away with, what is it called, the Peter principle, where they're hired beyond their area of expertise. Is that just natural to you? Did you have to learn this over time to find what level you like to be happy at?
I'm not sure if it was deliberate or, certainly in hindsight, I recognize that I did a few things intelligently. I've always worked with partners that complemented what I did. We didn't intrude on each other's territory, but between the two of us or the three of us, we kind of covered all the bases that needed to be covered. Starting with Microprose and working with Bill Staley, and later at Firaxis. So I've never felt a need to kind of get involved in those areas that I'm probably not that good at. I kind of try to always kind of create situations where I could focus on making games, and I didn't have to worry about the other parts of the industry. We've always worked with very supportive publishing partners. Again, the same philosophy that what we do is make games. There are other folks that are great at marketing and publishing and things like that. So let's stick with our strengths, as a company, and personally for me to stick with my strength as a person, and not kind of think the grass is greener over on the other side of the fence. I can't imagine a better job than being a game designer. So I never really had that idea that I've got to try something different, or I want more responsibility. I want to do what that person is doing. I'm happy, doing what this person is doing.
I think it's such an amazingly healthy attitude to have. And I feel like a lot of other developers, especially if their name's on the box, for Christ's sake, I mean, that's huge. And they would just feel like, I need to be in charge of marketing. I need to up this. I can tweak that trailer. I can manage these tweets, and they can just spin out. So it's an amazing, selflessness, or I guess just, immunity to an inflated ego. And I'm wondering where you think that comes from. What is it in you that has maintained that healthy level of, the right level of ego throughout your life here?
Well, I think that I really enjoy making games, and so I think my management of my time, I guess, is based on those things. So I understand that any time I would spend expanding my role into marketing or other areas would be time taken away from game design. And I actually have the experience of the very early days of being not only the programmer, but the artist and the sound designer and the manual writer. And back in our early days, I did all those different things because I was basically the only person there. So I, in a sense, I've kind of been there and done that.
Yeah.
And found that that's not what I enjoy as much as making the game itself. So I guess I can check those boxes off and say I've done that, and now I know what I like to do, so I'm going to keep doing that.
Yeah. I heard you mention in another interview how you've been, this is very particular to my interest, how you've been getting into video editing recently with your church.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear you talk about your thoughts on video editing and what it's like to get into it, now.
Yeah, well, it's the joy of discovering something new. I think we all love technology, and before this, I really had no idea what was involved. I mean, I could imagine, but editing, cutting shots, transitions. I'm also working with sound and what can be done with taking some pretty raw sound and add a little reverb, add tuning up here, think about the structure of a song, and then to edit some video to bring that to life. It's kind of another aspect of creativity to me. I mean, what's been fascinating to me about computer games is the combination of the technology, which is very, a C++ instruction, you know exactly what it's going to do. Where combining that with a game that starts as a very nebulous concept and gradually forms into something fun. The same idea with a video. You have some kind of general ideas of how you want it to look, and then you kind of get down into the weeds and figure out what shot you want to use and how you want to. What happens on this part of the screen? What sort of transition you want? Again, I think the idea that resonates with me there, and I think also ties with video games, is like I feel every day I've gotten a little better at it. Like, okay, I learned a new trick today. I got more efficient. I think in games, it's the same thing. But I've learned something new. I've gotten better at this game. You see that progress, and that's what keeps you wanting to do, the one more turn, one more video, one more song, whatever it is.
Yeah. I like the idea of you editing videos and kind of finding the game aspects of it. Of realizing like, okay, it's more powerful. I use this music here and then cut here. I can really gamify this entire editing software. Yeah.
I guess that's a good way of looking at it.
I don't know. It's not really, but thank you for humoring me. But I'm curious, your faith. I don't know how comfortable you are talking about it. How big of an impact on your life has your faith had? Did you mention that a lot in the book?
A little bit. I think it's maybe part of the reason that I can be calm and focused and not need to have a bigger job or whatever, have my name bigger on the box. But I think in the same way that our philosophy of game design is to let the player be the star. It's not something that we play up in, that I play up in designs, for example. I think that we're not trying to promote a particular political philosophy or a particular religious philosophy. The games are about having fun, but we talk a little bit in the book about how nobody ever dies in all of our early games. For the longest time, nobody would ever die. That was kind of a philosophy in Pirates. If you sank the enemy ship, they would all jump off and swim away. And in Railroads, if the train was about to go over the bridge, the engineer and the conductor would jump out and they'd be saved. I think we do feel a certain responsibility to our players, and to kind of look at present a kind of a more positive vision of life in the world, and perhaps there's a connection there.
Yeah. Have you thought about ever designing a Christian video game? It seems like a wildly undertapped market if you want to be a businessman about it.
Yeah, I have thought about that, and it pretty quickly runs into some real challenges that where again, this idea that the player has to be the star. We've actually avoided in a lot of our games what we call these moral dilemmas, where you have to do this to win, but you feel bad about doing it. That's no fun. Pirates was criticized for omitting the real life of pirates. They had got scurvy, and it was a terrible life, and nobody had any fun. It was miserable. We were criticized in Civ for leaving some of the more unsavory aspects of the world out. But that's, again, at the end of the day, we're trying to create a fun experience for the player. And so we do make those decisions, and, creating these kind of moral dilemmas perhaps would be interesting, but I've never found a satisfactory way of really kind of adding that to one of our games. Now, there are games where that's the focus and the core, and that can make sense. But in a game where it's strategy, sandbox, you are owning and telling the story, we want you to feel good about the story that you've created.
Yeah. I'm curious about the role of smaller games within the studio. How important you think, releasing stuff like, Ace Patrol or Haunted Hollow is just to the health of an overall studio?
It is. It's an interesting part. We kind of vacillate. Sometimes it's a little more important. Other times we're like, okay, the stuff, we've got these games, that people want, the next one, and they really want it. We better get it out there. Let's not get distracted. So it kind of goes back and forth. I think it's a great tool for younger designers to kind of get some of those design chops under their belt. Some of them are kind of exploring new things, whether it's Facebook or mobile, or there's always something new happening technology-wise, and those are areas where we need to learn how to do it first before we go and do a major game. So we might do something smaller in those arenas, but we have the luxury really of having franchises like Civilization and XCOM that demand benefit from AAA treatment, and I think we'd be foolish not to recognize that and give the players what they want.
Yeah. Well, I hope you can still squeeze in more time for smallest projects. I think they're really fun. Are there any recent games that you've really been loving? Even the last couple of years, what has really stood out to you? There've been, yes. I don't spend a whole lot of time playing games, because as soon as I start to say, oh, that reminds me of a game I want to work on. But and typically I'll try to play games that are kind of different from what I'm working on, because I want to cleanse my palette in a way or whatever. But anyway, so it's not a brand new game, but Minecraft, when it came out, I just spent a lot of time just loving that game. Yeah.
But more recently, I've been playing Overland. It's a little kind of fun little. I'm not sure what the genre would be, but it's
turn-based roguelite, I think. Yeah.
And I've always liked racing games. Gran Turismo has kind of always been one of my favorite, going back to 2 or 3. I forget which one it was, but I got hooked. There's a little game called Flame in the Fire, I think it was, or
Flame in the Flood.
Little adventure game, survival.
Okay.
Again, I just Flame in the Fire. I'm not sure exactly, but I have the Xbox Live subscription, so you can
Perfect.
sample all these games and try them out and see if they're fun. And a couple of them have really stuck with me.
Have you checked out the new Microsoft Flight Simulator? It seems up your alley.
I have read about that, and it sounds incredible. There's a story. I remember playing Microsoft Flight Simulator on the IBM PC before I even started making games, and I guess it was one of the games that really opened my eyes to what the potential was. I was like, wow, you can do this on a computer? maybe you could simulate the entire history of civilization on a computer someday. Might be worth a try.
Yeah, and then eventually model the entire Earth in the new Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's a perfect circle, yeah.
Yeah,
well,
that's
great.
An amazing product.
Well, hey, anything else you'd like to say about the memoir, or give a tip for where people can find it?
Well, I'd just like to thank our players, our community, all the folks that have made Civilization what it is, have supported Firaxis over the years, and played all of our games. We wouldn't be here without the players. We wouldn't be able to do this work, which is I think the best job in the world. So thanks to all of you. And if you are interested in some of the stories behind the games, you might find the book interesting.
See, it's this humility again. You gotta hype the book, Sid. Here we go.
Buy this book.
Quite the salesman. Well, hey, Sid, thank you so much for all your hard work throughout the years, and thanks for writing this book. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Cool. Thanks so much for watching or listening to this interview. We appreciate your time as well. Take care, everybody. Bye. MinnMax is a Patreon about games, friends, and getting better. The Deepest Dive is the best, most thorough discussions about games on the internet. Prove us wrong, please. The MinnMax Show podcast airs every Thursday. Patreon supporters vote on what we stream every single week, and a whole lot more. Give us a shot, try subscribing to the YouTube channel, and we hope we can win you over.